Hello everybody, welcome to the Amazon European Masters group stages. We're gonna finish up Group C today and starting it all off, Vibrant Jamada, bring you the first half of the day. Jamada, you excited?
I am very excited. After yesterday's games as well in particular, I think it kind of just gets me more hyped for this group in particular, simply because this group is in standings actually even closer than Group B was.
I mean, we're going to be talking a lot about what is going to be happening today, but let's have a quick look back at what we saw yesterday. Starting off, of course, the rise of the LFL in this group. K-Corp, they were on something else yesterday.
Yeah, K-Corp really came online yesterday. I think, I had a lot of discussion with quite a few French fans on Twitter yesterday, and the general consensus was the scaling is online. K-Corp, week one, there were definitely some questions about, their overall performance, but yesterday they were on form. And yeah, it was pretty much start to finish domination in most of their matches. Obviously, that highlight reel coming from the Team Phantasma game. Team Phantasma, unfortunately, didn't have the best showing yesterday. Didn't manage to make it into the top two. X7, however, started off the day pretty damn well, if you ask me. Especially Tempt on this Azir. It was a slightly different look to what we see him on. But couldn't say the same for X7 as the day progressed. GL versus Team Phantasma. Honestly, Game and Legion definitely looked a little bit out of it themselves too. Something wasn't quite right. I'm not sure exactly what was going wrong in their game, but unfortunately, of course, they were the other team that didn't quite manage to make it in, though their match against Team Phantasma did give them a little bit of hope moving forward into the day.
I mean, if you say Team Phantasma maybe didn't have the best day, of course, not picking up a win, but I think for the GLL representatives, up against Game and Legion, in this game, obviously we're seeing it go GLL's way in the end. Much closer than expected, of course. The rematch that a lot of people have been holding on to hope for. Dominance from X7 in the first matchup, but K-Corp this time around had their number.
Yeah, no, they really did. And speaking about X7 just briefly for a moment ago, yeah, I mean, X7, beyond that opening game, just looked a little bit different compared to week one. They weren't as fluid. Their sort of mid-game decision-making was a little shaky, and it resulted in, calming Corp. Not only were they just playing better anyway, but with this kind of revitalized version of themselves in the second round robin, taking that game and putting themselves in a position where they had to take down Game and Legion to force the tiebreaker, or give the opportunity for themselves to sit first. Of course, X7 then went on to force the tiebreaker.
Yeah, and here's X7 taking down Team Phantasma. But again, talking about GLL representatives, this was a very, very close game. And of course, X7 came out on top at the end of the day in this matchup. But I mean, I was honestly surprised with the way that the games had looked, that Phantasma didn't manage to win yesterday.
Yeah, no, I have to say, like you say, it was very impressive from Team Phantasma to actually put out the fights that they did against what was effectively for them the group of death, right? They probably couldn't have rolled a harder group out of the pool. And yeah, definitely made it very, very tough for X7, almost immediately forced them into second place. But of course, with that win, we did get the tiebreaker. And I mean, as a unit, Karmine Corp just kind of dismantled X7. It was a little bit slow, but come the end of the game, it was pretty damn fast. And X7, yeah, not much legs to stand on. And KC, following LDLC, will be another Pool 1 team moving into quarterfinals. And
I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's going to be one of our key storylines today, is this LFL dominance. LDLC and K-Corp, both top seeds coming out of their groups, as you can see on your screen. Vitality B in Group A, which is finalized tomorrow, also sees an LFL team at the top. And then we look towards Group C and BDS Academy. One of these things is not like the others. They've got a job to do.
Yeah, no, I mean, 1 and 2, right? It's a bit of a mountain to climb. The group in general, very close. I think, most people would have expected Fnatic to have probably 3-0'd the group, being clean and clear, but of course, dropped their game to Esker. Esker as well, another team that we'll have to talk a little bit about as time goes on throughout the day. But the mantle is kind of, high and hard to reach for BDS in this kind of position. They effectively kind of have to win every game and hope results go their way in order to, try and reach the same heights that the other LFL seeds have reached. And speaking of winning every single game of the day, they will be opening the day. They will be the second game against Esker, a very important game for them, but it will be Bifrost Fnatic TQ, followed by, of course, by that BDS game. Fnatic Kesso will then take on Esker following that. And of course, we'll then round out the day with BDS, Fnatic Kesso, which could be a bit of a banger depending on how results fall.
Of course, we'll be keeping you up to date with how things are looking throughout the day when it comes to the group. But something that's really, really exciting for this group is you look at the overall narratives for the regions. NLC, let's start with them. If Bifrost qualify out, this is the first time both NLC organizations will make it out of groups into the playoff stages since spring 2020, which is massive for the region. There's been a lot of talk. You can see it on social media. NLC like to pipe up quite a lot when it comes to talking about how they feel like they should be represented in this tournament. And with X7 dropping a little bit yesterday, a little bit more pressure on Bifrost in this one.
Yeah, definitely a little bit more pressure on Bifrost. And I mean, you know, a pretty tough game to open out the day with, right? They start with Fnatic, the team that they're currently tied with in the standings. And I think, given what we saw from them in week one overall, I think there's a lot of positives to take from Bifrost games. But I think obviously seeing the specific matchup in round one where they did play against Fnatic and they kind of did get dismantled for the first 25 minutes, they held on, and I think that's the key thing to know, right? We've actually got the stats from their week one performances. Bifrost in the early game were kind of, I wouldn't say lackluster, but they weren't really trying to be proactive as much, right? In a lot of their games, they did fall behind. On average, you can see obviously 1.2 just sort of edged up to almost 1.3 if you round it up. Behind at 15 on average. They didn't score a single first blood. They didn't take the first tower in any game, and they only managed to about get 2 plays on average. Whereas on the flip side for FnaticTQ, you can see ahead in, on average by over 2,000 gold. They got first blood in all of their games. They were always getting the first tower. These guys are the kings of proactivity in this group, and I think the only thing really our question is kind of the dichotomy of the two teams of Bifrost have shown a very shaky early game. Fnatic have shown a very strong early game themselves. But on the reverse, the mid game onwards has looked a lot better for Bifrost. But obviously we've got a couple of questions about Fnatic and their consistency sort of post that 20-minute mark.
We don't have any questions about who's on the 2 rosters, which is going to be coming up on your screen in short order. Starting off with, of course, the matchup Bifrost versus FnaticTQ starting at the top of this group. One of them will be going 3-1. Bifrost up first. Shikari, Cboi, Furuy, Odi, and DuaLL. And a lot of expectations on these rosters from people from the NLC. But outside of it, they're looking to cause some upsets.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think given the performance that we've seen, you know, I think it's bolstered hopes and expectations for the Bifrost lineup. I think coming into it, we looked at the group as NLC representatives and said, this is probably going to be a bit of a tough one, but moving into week 2 being 2-1, it's really great to see them, you know, stepping up and performing. And of course, FnaticTQ, Oscarinin, MAXI, Baca, Bean, Rhuckz. We know about this lineup. They are very, very strong. One of the strongest, if not the strongest, historically to come out of the LVP base. It's going to be an uphill battle for Bifrost. For Fnatic, looking for a bit of redemption in the sense of, you know, not necessarily being at that 3-0 mark, which we was probably expecting they very well could have been moving into this set of games.
And I mean, we talk about it, it's a very close group. If FnaticTQ don't have a good day today, Super League could be gone before the playoff stages, which would be a massive upset regionally. But we're into Champions League for our first game of the day. Bifrost on the blue side, FnaticTQ on the red. Winner will be going 3-1, staying top of the group. Loser 2-2 will be matched up by someone who wins our match in second of the day. Gangplank first taken off the table.
Yeah, don't want to see Oscarinin's Gangplank, and of course that does kind of play into Bifrost's tendency to try and give OD the resources that he can. You want to try and stop that global coming in from the top side. Sometimes Shikari might want to play tanks. A lot of Shikari's champion pool in general, I feel like when you sort of take a look at it, down the list, it does kind of struggle into Gangplank. So a lot of these bans do make sense. Fnatic as well, they are a very heavy top side team, so seeing that Jace then be followed up in the ban list makes a whole bunch of sense. And Senna, Volibear, very standard bans into Bifrost. We've seen that a lot domestically too.
And I mean, we've seen bans for Volibear out from everyone on this patch because he's one of the strongest picks. You want to be slamming him B1 if you can, so it's a very standard ban from Fnatic. There's Zarya also taken off the table. The Zeri may well be the answer to get rid of that one as well if they don't want to see OD on that one, but that allows them the B1 Jinx, which has fallen in priority, but we know what OD can do on the champ.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other champion to also talk about is Ahri as well. Ahri's seen a whole bunch of rise of priority on this patch and at this tournament in general. I remember day one, it was pretty much unanimously first picked or, you know, just straight up banned. But the Jarvan opener is definitely a bit of a question mark for me because now I wonder, like, for FnaticTQ, they get the opportunity to obviously get a favorable jungle matchup. They could also just go down the route of picking up the Ahri themselves if Baca wants to play that, and then that Ahri really handles Jarvan honestly fine, and they can also pick up their prior AD. Loads of options for Fnatic with this Jarvan opener. We'll see what they decide to go with. There you go, something mobile, right? The LeBlanc, it's going to struggle, the Jarvan, to actually lock down that LeBlanc, and FnaticTQ just opening up with the Lee, with the LeBlanc, so they're already looking to play, you know, from the get-go, probably the mid 2v2 in through the jungle.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like the Lissandra picked up. We've seen it as the solution to LeBlanc. If Fury's got it in wheelhouse, you don't seem hugely convinced by that.
I mean, I think obviously, you know, 1-to-1 the matchup can be fine, but I think the list as well, I don't know. It is definitely probably something that Fury's got in his wheelhouse, but I think you probably just want to try and play the skill matchup that Ahri can provide for you. I think it's just slightly stronger in the meta, and right now you've got the Jinx as well. You start to set up for that sort of reset composition too. I think it's very powerful in this meta. We'll see. Maybe that list does come out to try and just provide a little more hard TC to lock down the LeBlanc and the mobility also of the Lee Sin. It wouldn't be a terrible option, but I think when you're talking about strength of champions, Ahri just suits Fury's playstyle better, but actually they might end up going for a little more dive in the Vex instead. And that is obviously a champion which kind of fits, in a way, both of those playstyles, right? Provides a lot of hard TC that Sandra has, also sort of the mobility of consistently getting those ultimate resets. A lot of flexibility there by FnaticTQ, so they will pick up the Gnar for Oscarinin, and now that means that they can probably ban away some picks that will cause a couple of issues for him in the lane matchup, particularly something perhaps like maybe the Malphite. They also may want to take away things like the Ornn, just for the simple case of taking away that scaling aspect from the top side of Shikari.
Yes. And I mean, the Vex is really exciting to see because we were talking about it a little bit yesterday when we were in the green room watching the matches, and the idea of why is the Vex seeing a little bit more play? We can have a talk about that one in this matchup. But as you say, moving into the second round of bans, no supports have yet been picked up, but as you mentioned, stuff like the Ornn taken off Shikari's hands.
Yeah, and I think on the opposite side now for Bifrost, you obviously have two options, right? You can try and pinch on being championable because you already have that Jinx in pocket. You could also try and take away things that maybe you don't want Rhuckz to have, that maybe Dual won't necessarily want to play with the Jinx, like perhaps something really weird like the Nami. But I think the more safe option here, go for the AD bans. Things like the Misfortune might be good, things like the Lucian, which kind of by proxy also take away the Nami pick up as well. Very strong opening ban from Bifrost, and like we said, I'm expecting something like the Malphite, maybe something like the Camille if they think Shikari will play it. Given that we're seeing Jarvan and Vex, something that also supplements a little more dive could make a lot of sense for FnaticTQ to ban away.
Have to wait and see if they're going to go in that direction or if they want to get rid of one of these supports. As you mentioned, it's going to be the Scion taken off the table, which does make some sense, but it does leave a few options for Shikari open, stuff like the Malphite, especially one you mentioned.
Yeah, definitely something where, like, you know, in isolation against the Gnar can handle it really well. You just have to kind of guard him on the first sort of 4 or 5 waves or so, and then as long as he's not getting absolutely murdered by the rest of the map, he's going to come online and do his thing a lot sooner. And Ezreal ban definitely maybe signals that we could see the Malphite come out. We'll see. It could be also trying to pigeonhole being onto the Misfortune as well. But again, you know, the AD pool still relatively open, even though we've seen these 2 bans come out towards being, and of course, even the Aphelios is still there to think about. And I think that does potentially signal something like the Rakan to supplement the Jarvan, and then the Malphite as well. And you just go kind of all in on this dive, and you allow yourself to effectively kind of pick and choose your targets of all the hard TC that you've got going for yourself.
And at the end of the day, with Rakan, Malphite, Jarvan, you can hit multiple people with your CC. Even Vex, if she's flying on in and holding that CC to disrupt the fight, it's going to be very, very difficult for Fnatic to play the traditional front to back, because with Aphelios being their primary damage dealer, of course, you've got LeBlanc as well. Lee Sin is no slouch in that regard. They're going to be diving through and doing some damage, but Aphelios is going to be left all on his lonesome. They're going to need something supporting to keep them up. We've got the Rakan locked in, considering the Camille, maybe?
Yep, like I said, right? Dive options just seem to be the case, whether it's the Malphite or it ends up being the Camille, which it will be the Camille. I think the theme of the draft was always starting to build itself, and I think something like that Tahm Kench to try and shut down some of those diving options will make a whole bunch of sense here. Of course, you know, Hextech Mayhem, great, just eat whichever target it is, and you can probably walk away for free. There shouldn't be too many issues with that one, and I think in lane wouldn't be too scary. Also, something like the Thresh could be an option, but I really feel like in the context of what we're looking at towards Bifrost, I think Tahm Kench just provides a slightly easier safety net to use, and we will get that Tahm Kench coming for us.
And it allows him just to keep being alive. You've got to imagine he's probably going to be the focus. But again, if they decide to go onto Baca, if they catch MAXI out, also gives them a solution to get out of jail free. So we've got our 2 compositions now. And we talked a little bit about how these 2 teams like to play. Bifrost tend to be a little bit slower getting going, but their late game team fighting is really, really good. You actually said to me when we were prepping this, you said, Bifrost kind of look like an old school Ultra League team with the way that they can play these disciplined style of gameplay really, really well.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it feels reminiscent of those like very traditional Ultra League teams. Won't necessarily be super active in the early game all the time, but then, you know, they get their core items and all of a sudden they're a team fighting monster. That's kind of what the profile that's kind of been built for Bifrost, especially sort of like playoffs onwards, right? But I think we've also seen, you know, different versions of them throughout, you know, the play-ins, and then also not only that, I think their draft against, was it Esker as well, where Esker were running a composition in theme very similar to this, very hard dive, and they just kind of responded very casually with anti-dive, and whilst the damage of the composition was very low, they had OD on the Jinx, and all they really need to do was supplement him in those team fights. And I think this is kind of a very it's a very reminiscent to that Esker draft now that they're handling, where they have to dive. But I think the only caveat to that is I don't really feel like they get outscaled, or in fact, I would even go as far as saying they probably do outscale the side of FnaticTQ in terms of how the team will probably want to interact. I think there's obviously things like execution thresholds have to come in, things like, you know, Rhuckz being on point with those devours, things like Shikari as well, of course, finding consistent flanks onto those high value targets like Baca on the LeBlanc, like of course Bean, or even I think one thing that teams don't do enough is pick on the Tahm Kench. If you can't actually kill the target that you want to kill because Tahm Kench is there, just murder the catfish. Like, it is a very valid way of playing into Tahm. I think it also works a lot more than teams will probably think it does. But on the FnaticTQ side as well, I think their draft, you know, very Fnatic, right? Wanting to play towards top side, you try and get yourself a strong matchup with those 2 additional bans whilst giving yourself the blind. Gnar, yes, you're playing into the Camille, but with that LeBlanc and the Lee Sin, you should have sort of 2v2 priority in the mid jungle to try and shift out to the top side.
Well, we've got a couple of minutes of delay here, so we're going to have another quick look at the standings just to make sure that we're all centered in exactly where we are when it comes to Group C. All the games today will be from Group C. So we've got Bifrost and FnaticTQ about to come onto your screens. They are going to be up first, 2-1 as things currently stand. FnaticTQ have the head-to-head in this matchup, having taken down Bifrost and delivering them their only loss so far. BDS Academy and Team Esker Gaming both sitting on 1 and 2. And of course, all of these teams will be playing against each other in this matchup. But looking at this table, loser of this game and winner of the next game will be tied up 2-2. Things couldn't really be closer.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think the banger thing for me about this group is there's a real possibility that we could see everybody be tied up at 3-3.
Yes.
Now, it is 100% the meme timeline, and I'm not going to give it any credit until maybe like the end of game 3. Especially because obviously Fnatic played twice in the first half of the day, and they very well could beat Bifrost here and then go on to beat Esker, and then the dream is dead. But it still would be kind of funny if we end up with that 3-way sort of tiebreaker scenario. But yeah, it is pretty much still neck and neck. Like you said, game 1 loser will then be tied with game 2 winner, and that could put yourself in a very precarious position as the games continue to unfold throughout the day.
Well, I mean, at that point, the advantage that you gained through week 1 by being slightly better over that week is gone, because you're now tied up with someone. There's a team that's got a win over you that you've already lost to, so the head-to-head probably won't look that great. But let's move in to the Rift. First game of the day, first of 6 asterisk. Could be more, of course, with tiebreakers. If we do get 2-way tiebreaker or the 4-way tiebreaker, the real dream, they'll be coming to you immediately after the games are finished today. Bifrost on the blue side, FnaticTQ on the red. Top of the table clash. Let's get at it.
Yeah, let's get at it indeed. And I want to try and talk about the early game from the get-go. I think it's going to be pretty pivotal, especially for Bifrost, just because we've seen, you know, they have not necessarily gained the early game leads here at the Amazon European Masters in groups, right? On average, they've been down just over 1,000 gold. I want to see a little bit more proactivity come out of them. I'm not sure necessarily where we'll get it, right? I think Vex and Jarvan might struggle to lock down the LeBlanc. I feel like it's more of a reactive lockdown as opposed to a proactive lockdown in that sense. So I'm looking at Cboi and I'm saying, all right, what are your goals and objectives here? Because I think if I'm looking at Cboi's roles here, I think you're more or less looking to kind of try and shut down MAXI, trying to supplement LeBlanc in the mid lane. So I think just trying to stick around the Vex and ensure that she doesn't get bullied or lose priority too easily, so that doesn't bleed into the top side. I think that's where I'm expecting FnaticTQ to try and make their plays. But the last time I said this, when they had a top-centric draft, they said to hell with that. Bot lane looks a little juicier. So I think that's always the scary thing about FnaticTQ when they have tools like this. They will go on opportunity, not just game plan.
And I mean, something that is very notable as well, and to be considered, it might not happen, of course, but Cboi could look down towards that bot side potentially. Rakan's got a decent setup, and with those Tahm Kench changes that came through at the beginning of the year, his ultimate is now his each, so before level 6, he's not going to be able to peel off particularly effectively, and he is very squishy, so even if you want to go down bot and kill Rhuckz a couple of times, that might get OD rolling, and we know exactly what OD can do if he gets a couple of kills on Jinx.
Yeah, exactly. You saw it in the Esker game, where it felt like, I mean, to be honest, it was maybe one fight where he got 2 kills at most, and then after that, it was just straight up a quadra kill. He was set up for success in that game, of course. And I feel after FnaticTQ's last running with Team Esker, actually, not Bifrost, they're going to be a little more cautious, perhaps, if they do allow Bifrost the space in the mid game to try and give OD some resources. and try and shut him down a little more aptly with the LeBlanc and the Lee Sin. As you can see, trading in the mid lane. Definitely a matchup which, you know, I think initially when Vex came into the meta, people were like, yeah, it's definitely very, you know, Vex favored. You get to always fear LeBlanc and the distortion. It's definitely a bit of a skill matchup at the end of the day. And I think LeBlanc can definitely play it in a manner where you're pretty safe and actually you end up providing, you know, the same level of setup that you would in any other lane. Even though Vex, of course, has so much anti-mobility inside of her kit. See how Furuy decides to pilot that one and how, of course, his jungler tries to play in and around the mid lane. Of course, top side, a matchup which should favor Camille and actually is looking to get a gank.
Yeah, my favorite Camille even further if J4's going to be there. The hop is stopped and Oscarinin is going to go down here. First blood is donated over to Shikari.
Yeah, Cboi gets the assist just by pressing W and walks out. Shikari interrupting that hop with the hook shot. Pretty much shields Oscarin's fate. Doesn't even end up flashing. And that's an easy first blood for the Camille, which again, you know, Camille in a game like this with, you know, the mobility of Lee Sin, LeBlanc, she comes to join the team fights, being able to lock them down with Hextech ultimatum and being super fed can really end up paying dividends. So pretty high value early game gank, and that's the first time that Bifrost have gotten first blood so far in groups.
And the first time that Fnatic haven't got first blood in groups.
Yeah.
Here at the Amazon European Masters, but as you mentioned, it looks quite top-centric. They wanted to look around that mid lane and that top side. Now that Shikari's got a little bit of a lead, things might get worse and worse for Oscarinin. And of course, holding that flash is very useful. Means that he's got a little bit of additional safety in the top side, but it was a very nice to see a little bit of proactivity from Bifrost. DuaLL try to show off a little bit in the bot side as well, but with a big wave, unlikely to come to much else.
Yeah, Cboi wasn't there in the area as well. And I think on that top side, to sort of round out that note now, the fact that Shikari was able to pick up a Sheen on his first base, whereas on the opposite side, Oscarinin only picked up boots refillable. The trading pattern now is heavily in Camille's favor if she ever does get in range to trade with Gnar in particular, but Mega stacked up. This wave is also stacked up, and the issue is Cboi's not here to guard this wave crash, so MAXI's getting a pretty free gank opportunity.
I don't know if Shikari had any right to be that far up on his own. He's going to try and get the hook shot away. Flash forward from MAXI, returned by Shikari. Oscarinin also has one if he wants to get forward, but Shikari actually manages to get away and burn the jungler's flash.
Yeah, I mean, getting wave murdered, yes, does blow his flash to, of course, escape the gank, but the fact that MAXI was able to come up here on a stacked wave, not pick up the Camille, considering the way that Camille had to puff out of that gank, definitely feels a little bit bad for FnaticTQ. And now, not going to be able to pick on Shikari for now with this wave. Kind of in the same spot, but Oscarinin no longer has that Mega Gnar stacked up. A little less helpful on some of those gank attempts, a little more vulnerable to a turnaround.
Now, just heading back towards that bot side. Of course, Dragon has flown his way onto the Rift Cloud to open up the day here. Odie and DuaLL just going to hang around with Bean. Don't expect to see... In fact, you know, I'm not going to make a statement. I'm going to make a question. Jamada, are we going to see the supports looking to stay bot more than we usually see, just because Tahm Kench really wants to be around the Aphelios?
I mean, I think for Rhuckz, maybe, but I can say for sure, if Bifrost want to contest this Herald, considering how far ahead Shikari is sort of in the one-to-one right now, he is down in CS, which can make sense in a range to melee. Actually, might have to hold that point. Shikari forces Oscarin's flash. The issue is Oscarin no longer has hop. Cboi's here.
And it's going to be an easy kill. Cboi takes a couple of tower shots. Shikari grabs a second kill. They'll trade it for the Dragon. Hextech should be the next one landed onto Rift in 5 minutes' time. But nice response from Bifrost there.
Yeah, Bifrost really being proactive, and these are the kind of things that we want to see out of Bifrost when they have, you know, a winning topside matchup in isolation. Go and make it so it's no longer in isolation. And force that Camille ahead. Give yourself a side lane avenue to also work with instead of only having to rely on just your team fighting. Very good decision making so far, as Baca gonna force Furuy to flash. Very close to making a solo kill happen there.
A lot of damage on LeBlanc, and Fury's gonna need to be a little bit careful. Of course, Vex has utility, has those shields, has ways of stopping the dashes, but it wasn't able to pull it off this time. Only gonna get a little bit of damage. The Chompers actually will get the root, but the Zap will land into the Catfish rather than the Lunar Marksman, as Bean is able to step back. But this bot lane is looking very nice currently for Bifrost.
It's attracting the attention of both the junglers, though. Cboi popping out on the bot side. MAXI's here.
One here if they want to go for the dive, but as you mentioned, Cboi has also been pretty intrigued by what's been going on, and runs his way onto the Rift Predator popped and just wants to be able to make sure that MAXI isn't going to be able to do anything. Actually goes for the engage onto MAXI with the knock-up duel, dodging away from the Q from Lee Sin. And now MAXI gonna just safeguard himself over the wall. Very, very mobile as a jungler, but wasn't able to make anything happen.
Yeah, Cboi right now, because of the ganks towards the top side wall, that shared XP shoving in the waves, he's level 6, whereas MAXI only level 5. We'll just about spot him out as he goes for a recall. Didn't want to try and interrupt that or go for anything too spicy, but bottom side, the wave was shoved in, and we could end up seeing DuaLL rotate up towards the top side, and Cboi maybe clear out a camp or two before heading towards the Herald. The only issue right now is the top side of the map, there is no priority, but you can see Furuy trying to force priority in the mid lane. We'll see whether or not they actually... Yeah, it takes a whole chunk. We'll see if they actually want to try and play towards Herald, just because it seems like Furuy, if he dumps his mana pool into the wave, can get priority very easily, and with very little contention. You can see DuaLL is opening up onto the top side, stops Rhuckz on the reset, and that could actually be pretty big. With that information, they could just start the Herald outright. You can see Baca was forced back, even though Max is on the side of the map. Priority lies in Bifrost's favor. DuaLL is also here first. And those extra 8 seconds could mean that FnaticTQ might just not even go for a full-on contest here by bringing Rhuckz over.
Rhuckz is moving up towards that top side. You can see him on the bottom of your screen. You can see him in the center of your screen now as he is wandering his way down. MAXI is in the right side of the jungle. LeBlanc's going for the reset though, so I think, as you mentioned, Bifrost with that Jinx ultimate coming on through, secured themselves a free Rift Herald. And Cboi gonna head towards top side, but a ward will spot him out, and Oscarinin not in any real danger.
Yeah, Oscarinin not really in any true danger. Cboi, see where he wants to put this Herald, right? Because I mean, he's been paying so much attention towards Shikari in the top side. We're going to be surprised to see the Herald slingshot the Camille further ahead, but also OD has just been so crucial throughout the entire split, but also at this tournament so far in those late game team fights. On these hyper carries, giving them the resources wouldn't be too bad. I expect it to go to either side lane.
Giving it to Jinx, lovely. Giving it to Camille, lovely. I mean, giving it to Vex is lovely too. However, as you mentioned, probably not going to be the priority focus at this stage of the match. As in the bot side, it looks like FnaticTQ are trying to get something going, looking to get onto Oni. Nice knock up from the Abyssal Voyagers. Damage coming on through across the map. DuaLL going to dive on out though, and should be fine. But FnaticTQ, while they've been bullied a little bit in this lane, the farm's looking great for Bean, and he shows that he can put a little bit of damage down himself.
Yeah, definitely does. It's that combination. Whilst you know, you don't necessarily want to see your Aphelios in the later stages with red and the purple. In that instance, being able to apply the Gravitum slow and then eventually lock down with the Severum's Q did lead to that trade, and blowing OD's flash, definitely a big deal. We'll see if FnaticTQ want to try and actually make a play now down towards the bottom side, because I think on the top side, whilst you might not necessarily want to abandon, you know, the lane just because Camille is pretty far ahead, I think at this moment in time, with Jinx not having flash, trying to, you know, set her a little bit behind and try and pigeonhole Bifrost into only being able to play towards the top side could work out well.
MAXI though, gonna have to flash away, safeguarding with the Cataclysm flash, and it'll be DuaLL securing the kill with the burn from red buff. Actually, it must have been a burn from somewhere else, because he's just nabbed himself the red buff.
Yeah, the ignite is what managed to get himself the kill. MAXI kicked Cboi away, so Cboi wasn't able to get another ult attack down. Baca almost falls victim to the collapse, and they will actually drop it in the mid lane. A little bit opportunistic, but I mean, at the end of the day, if you can almost get yourself the tower, why the hell not opening up the mid lane against a team like FnaticTQ, trying to catch those waves up super high to ensure they can never make the first play on the side lanes. I think it's a pretty efficient way to try and shut down the Superliga team.
And taking down that first tower at the 11.5-minute mark, that was in the playbook when we were talking about how Bifrost and how FnaticTQ like to play. You've got Bifrost, slow, methodical, teamfight-orientated squad. And we talked, you questioned at the very start of the game, actually going to have to hold that point as Oscarinin is going to be the one that's engaged on. But I think he might be able to walk away, but Shikari puts down a bit of a beating. We were talking about how do they get ahead? Cboi, it's going to be on you. Cboi's like, yeah, cool, it is on me. What of it?
And I mean, honestly, if you turned off the nameplates and you heard our pre-game expectations, Rocket, close, I'm sure, expectations about how we want these two teams or expect these two teams to play, you would probably think that Bifrost are on red side and FnaticTQ are on blue, but right now, Bifrost are the more proactive team. It's Bifrost making the plays first, and it's Bifrost with the early game lead at the moment.
And with them having this lead, we're in a bit of strange territory here, because Bifrost, we know that they can win games when they're behind, averaging 1.2k deficit, being 2-1 up in the group so far. We know that they can play from those situations. Fnatic TQ, the game that they lost was a case of they had the advantage, but then made some interesting decisions in the late game where we've maybe had some question marks about them. This is uncharted territory for both of these teams because Bifrost coming into this one, they've got still a minute to try and pick up some points, trying to pick up some kills on Bean, but MAXI is there. Odin needs to be very, very careful. Bean stepping forward. MAXI's going to be able to land. The Cuban is going to get caught up by the charm. Odin trying to put down damage, but will be kicked into the Never as we lose out on Jinx. It's 3-1 the scoreline now.
Yeah, MAXI did a good job. And we said we wanted to see a punish on that no flash Jinx. It's not exactly the way we were expecting it. Bifrost just getting a little bit too overeager to try and find the dive onto Bean. They get both the summoner spells, but it loses OD his life. It's going to lose him a bunch of creeps underneath this tower. It's also going to give the Aphelios a bunch of waves. Vex is going to teleport down there to try and get to it. Cboi also up here to try and shield Oscarinin away. So nice response from Bifrost across the map, honestly. Trying to steal away some of these camps on the top side that Oscarinin was trying to retreat to. They will force him off a couple of ways. The only issue is Baca's here. Cboi could be in danger.
Cboi could be in a lot of trouble. The Shane will land the root, but he is going to be able to flag and drag away, but he's still being chased on by LeBlanc. Shikari there just to give him some support. And it looks like LeBlanc isn't interested in chasing that one any further, but this has been a nice couple of minutes of play. It's been all about riposte, counterplay. What are you doing? What are we going to do? And these two teams, they're reading the game really, really well.
Yeah, and seems for now, Fnatic as well has to be mentioned. They do have 2 early dragons as well. As a hold that point, it's because they've been bullying the top side.
Oscarinin getting bullied again, caught in the ultimatum, gets the stun, a bit of damage down to the Shikari. Cbois doesn't seem super interested, but we'll be able to get the knock-up damage coming down onto Gnar. It's pretty big, but Baca's behind there. Remember, Shikari will be able to delete the Yordle, but MAXI's here now. It's still a 2v2. Rhuckz coming up. Numbers advantage fully in the favor of the Super League aside, as Shikari tries to make excuses. We see Duel coming on through, but a really nice time Baca. Might see him out, but nice charm coming on down. Cboi's low. He goes down. Duel's just there trying to get on top of the LeBlanc, but won't be able to do so. The Guardian keeps Baca alive. The shield is massive. Huge play from Fnatic Queso.
Yeah, it seems like as well the passive from Baca just kind of maybe confused both Cboi and DuaLL on who they had to target. As Rocket's coming out, he's looking for the LeBlanc. I think the Rocket's going to be spotted on the way up, and it definitely would have landed. But Rhuckz gave him the information to just cancel that recall. Seems now Herald could be on the cards for Fnatic Team Queso if they want to pick it up. We'll just move away from it for now, as we'll get a replay of the top side. And I think the hesitancy fully comes from the fact that, of course, Oscarinin is about to go into Mega. In Mega underneath the tower. Cboi doesn't want to commit. He doesn't want to get Nard underneath the tower. But once the teleport comes in and Oscarinin commits the ultimate, that's when Cboi finally goes in. Doesn't commit the ultimate himself because Shikari is able to follow through and, of course, take him down with the true damage portion of the precision protocol. But then collapsed on by MAXI, by Rhuckz, and on the opposite side, Cboi getting chunked out by Baca after he comes through out of that stasis. And you can see the turnaround damage is huge, but they just kind of split the damage, I think, a little bit onto both the clones, unfortunately. And it means that it gives Rhuckz enough time to get in range to devour Baca and keep his mid laner alive.
Credit to DuaLL, he did ignite the right one though. So,
yeah,
you know, he knew to some extent, but unfortunately, of course, the Tahm Kench ultimate giving that shield was what, in the end, made sure that Baca got out alive. But a 2-for-1 exchange up there means that gold still not exactly even. We've got a little bit of advantage for Bifrost, but it's nothing to write home about, as Furuy is looking to take a little bit more territory. Dragging up in 30 seconds. And as you mentioned, they've already got 2 on the side of Fnatic Queso. We've got a Mounted as our soul. Bifrost needs to start contesting these.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, I think by having it Fury down here on the bottom side, and they've got most of their numbers in the mid lane, Shikari's also coming off the top wave, they do want to contest this. They don't want to give over a 3rd dragon. Just simply because if they do go to soul point so early on, it's just another pressure sinkhole, which they'll have to continue to worry about and deny, as this Herald will be dropped in the mid lane. It will get its charge off. It won't take the tower. And now, despite all the numbers they had there, Fnatic, they forced their way into the river through the mid lane. They will have control of the river for now. Oscarinin Also has Mega.
That's a nice ultimate following through. Baca's getting damage down. The automated is put down. So much is used. Deletion by Shikari as MAXI trying to dive away, but the Cataclysm will catch him out. He's going to be able to survive by gulling into the frog's mouth, but will be taken out alongside the Catfish. Bifrost domination as they take down Free, but they're not done yet. Furuy moving forward, trying to get some damage onto his fellow Yordle. Gnar is fighting Furuy with the shield, should see him off, and that's another bean. Not going to be able to land the snipe. The Wolves take the bullet as Furuy waddles away.
Yeah, and Baca just oversteps there. I mean, you can't really blame him, right? He's trying to follow up on Bean's Gravitum ultimate, but the issue is the ultimate comes in from Shikari, the Hextech ultimate locks him down, and he can no longer retreat. And actually, it could have even been Jules' ultimate plus knockup, which kept him in place to begin with. We'll get the replay on confirmation. Either way, the CC came in whichever order from those two champions. We'll see. I think it's just getting charmed by the Rakan, because that's who he dashes onto. The Hextech ultimate confirms that kill. MAXI gets locked up by the Everfrost, and then after that, the follow-up is huge from the rest of Bifrost. Look at them all diving forward. The kick does land onto just about everybody from Bifrost, but at that point, Fnatic are already in full retreat. This ultimate from downtown, the Shadow Surge, does connect onto Oscarinin, and you do wonder for a while whether or not he's going to have the damage. Take him out in the first rotation of spells. It's the second rotation that comes in, and the snipe, Caliber snipe blocked by the Wolves. The Creatures of the Rift on Bifrost's side for that player's duel. Could be in trouble. Yeah, force the flash.
Oh, Rhuckz gonna go aggressively, caught out by the choppers. A lot of damage, a lot of CC, and the frog burns low. Teleport coming in the other side, though. We're not done just yet. Shikari has dove in looking for Oscarinin, and he's gonna get mad, but will he be able to do it so before he dies? Nice stun into the wall. Huge 4-man Gnar, but there's just no follow-up, and he's the victim this time. Predator becomes prey as Bifrost take more.
Yeah, they do take more indeed, and I mean, just trying to pick onto Jewel. You understand the mentality, but Rhuckz just goes too far forward. And Oscarinin also pays the price as well on the back end of the play. 0-5. I mean, got bullied in the early game, but also by the score, not having the best performance either. And Bifrost will capitalize with this mid-tier 2 off the back of that turnaround on the play. Looks like they'll even be able to rotate towards the top side. It is countered by Baca, who will pick himself up this solo tower on the bottom side. But still, 2 towers for 1 across the map. An up trade for Bifrost.
And as things stand, Baron will be on the Rift in 30 seconds as Furuy can't find the engage onto Baca. Things looking very good for Bifrost, something that we maybe haven't given enough respect to in terms of how these team fights are going to play out, or something we haven't given air to by discussing it too much. Bifrost have resets for days. Their ability to take a team fight if they can grab 1 kill is astonishing. Assuming that Fury's going to be able to land his ultimate, which, notwithstanding the last time he threw down his ultimate, has been pretty good. As Cboi actually might have been picked out here. Goes for the Cataclysm onto MAXI, but there's so many members here from Fnatic. They're going to be able to usher him away. Won't be able to find the kill just yet. They're back and moving forward, but Odie and DuaLL have turned up the speed on the Rakan, looking for an entry point. But the Mountain Rift doing a little bit of work there for Fnatic Team Cases to make it a slower route of entry. Is the fight going to continue?
Yeah, hold your breath. Fnatic Team Kesso fans there for a second. Bifrost definitely could have collapsed a little bit harder, but I think having to use so many ultimates just prior to that, Furuy wasn't there, didn't want to commit the teleport. It seemed like there was no good angle, perhaps. But there are wards lit. They could have been put down after the play. Oscarinin forced the flash away. Didn't want to get picked on. But again, Fnatic, you can see they're still in the mindset of trying to find these picks. It's just about not trying to go too far. And actually, on the topic of what can Fnatic do from this position, I think trying to team fight, it's going to be a bit risky, a bit tricky, right? I think you're sort of approaching the territory where you're going to need a bit of a miracle team fight, where, you know, Oscarinin hits a multi-man Gnar, it's followed up by Bean, a great ultimate, double distortion, things of that nature. At the very least, besides that, playing into side lane, it's going to be tough, just because of how strong Shikari is right now. Approaching that second item too, looks like a death stance by the inventory. I think Fnatic, they're just going to have to continue to look for picks like they have been. I think they've had a good read on how to try and come back into this game. It's just about making sure they don't overstep on that bound. And as for Bifrost, I mean, just keep doing what you're doing. Wait for Fnatic to try and group up. They're giving you the opportunities more than you're finding them, to be honest. And you keep on playing for those 5v5s.
They've got the tools. And the 6,000 almost gold lead shows how well they've been fighting, how well they've been reacting to Fnatic Queso aggression. And we've got to talk about Cboi in this game, because the onus is often put on the jungler. If you want to see early aggression, you want to see early plays happening, you're usually the numbers advantage. You're usually the one who has to pull the trigger. And I mean, 0, 1, and 8.
Kind of says he's been doing that, right? And I will say, as actually Furuy trying to pick on Oscarinin, and there's a lot of collapse here towards the top
There's
side.
a lot of people coming from both sides. As DuaLL's going to be able to catch down Rhuckz, catch down Oscarinin, and Furuy dives on forward, wants to try and get the kill to get that reset. But on the other side, Odie needs to be careful. Baca is there, looking for the assassination. The Jinx is dodging away from the chains. Damage going through, looking for a reset, looking for Hyper. No one's gone down yet, though, as Oscarinin goes large. Duel goes low, will be the first victim of the fight, as FnaticTQ respond quickly. Managed to grab themselves some kills, but on the bot side, Shikari starting up the Dragon.
Yeah, it looks like he will be starting up the Dragon. It's hard to tell by the symbol. I think Shikari did have teleport for that play. Could have teleported up if he wanted to. I think it had a couple of seconds maybe. But we'll get this Dragon, and that'll be the second mountain of the game. I think the only reason that fight really went wrong for Bifrost and went right for Fnatic was because Baca was able to find an angle onto Odie, keep him away from following up on the damage in the CC. Great stopwatch too from Rhuckz in order to keep himself alive up on the top side. Stops all of the follow-up and potential reset of Furuy. And the focus a little bit split, I think. Simply because Rhuckz had such a great stopwatch, it forced Duel to then go on to the other target, which kind of split some of the focus and damage there, and allowed for Fnatic to come back in and pick up Duel as he'd overstayed his welcome. The rest of the Fnatic Team Kesso lineup rolled up and was able to pick him off.
And now they're looking up towards the top side with no Dragon being available for 4.5 minutes. All eyes will turn towards the Worm, but really big engage coming in from Duel, but there's just no one ready to follow up. Odie's there, throws the ult down, but it's not going to execute anyone from half health. Shikari's thinking about going in, finds an opening. His members dive on through. They're going forward. The aggression from Bifrost is massive. They managed to get the first kill of the fight, and allow look towards Rhuckz. He's going to fall in time as Odie's going to look towards a third, looking for the zap. Should be able to take down Oscarinin in mini Gnar form. It's a double for Jinx. It's a triple for Bifrost. Baron on the menu.
Baron looks on the menu. I mean, it could be risky 4v2, but I think they should have easily enough damage. Shikari's actually going back to base. We'll see what he's actually up to. This Baron will get started up. Baca and Bean, they have vision on this. And if they can get a little bit of chunk, they have pretty good tools. Bean's got good weapons. Baca can try and distortion in, get some double poke in. Odie's health bar really low, no heal. I think they should be enough to dissuade it.
Yeah, Bifrost deciding against, which will be a little bit unfortunate. They committed the teleport from Shikari down to that one, so looks like FNTQ are going to be able to break down this mid lane tower. A slight misstep from Bifrost after a good team fight.
A little bit overeager yet. We'll see whether or not they can pick up this mid lane tower. The wave could just about get cleared out, and it will do. And that's Duel as well, 2 times in a row in a fight. I won't say being separated, but ends up getting picked off by going a little bit too deep. It wasn't even this initial play where you'd think he would probably lose his life for it. I think just very lucky MAXI didn't decide to press his R key and knock him away from the rest of the team. Shikari goes in over the wall. Cboi also full sends it. And at this point, you're kind of thinking, is this too deep? The kick comes in. The return looks okay. Baca picks up Duel on the bottom side. But the issue is MAXI goes down way too fast. And then Cboi with a flag and drag knock up onto Oscarinin secures a second kill for the Jinx in this team fight. And they look to try and pick up the Baron, but again, dissuaded by the FnaticTQ members. But I mean, you can see the mentality from Bifrost. It looks like a completely different team. And I will say, we had a bit of an asterisk, specifically, you know, on Cboi as well. Like how he's not necessarily been the most early active in this particular set of games from the round 1 robin. But I mean, domestically, there was quite a couple of series where he was kind of just throwing his body at plays willingly, and it was working out too for Bifrost. And now Oscarinin, he's kind of on the wrong side of the map here, the wrong side of the rotation. He might just about be able to get around to the rest of his team.
Ultimate committee goes very low. It will get there on the other side, though. Shikari's found Baca and MAXI. Goes into the odd domain. Has to go golden immediately afterwards, though, but the rest of his team will arrive. Going to be rooted up. Duel going aggressive, looking towards the catfish. Rhuckz is the target. You said this at the beginning, and they've taken him down. Oscarinin will be able to get a stun, looking for a Gnar potentially, but will actually bop his way out of the Cataclysm as Bifrost marauding forward. Can't find another. It's only the one pick, but it was close to more.
Yeah, it really was close to more. And FnaticTQ, I mean, just looking a little bit disjointed. Oscarinin on the top side pushing, knows that Bifrost, I'm pretty sure, in his top side jungle. The rest of the FnaticTQ try and salvage the play by going onto Shikari as he rotates towards the fight as well, but stopwatch in his inventory makes that fight one that they cannot really work on. And like you said, picking on the catfish, I mean, it's a very valid way to play around the Tahm Kench. If you know you're not necessarily going to be able to lock down the other members because they're either too mobile or Tahm Kench provides that safety net, just kill the damn catfish. And Bifrost, they're doing that pretty well so far. They found themselves almost 7k up.
With 27 minutes on the clock, Fnatic TQ looking a little bit concerned because we're very much, if we're talking historically in the group stages so far here at the Amazon European Masters, this is Bifrost's realm. This is where their team has performed the best. It's when they get to the later stages on even keel.
Yeah.
We've talked about them being the better team, and hey, they're ahead a significant amount of gold. 5-1-4 on Odie, 6-1-5 on Shikari. They've got damage across their roster. And Fnatic TQ still looking for these picks, still looking to be playing pretty well when it comes to the engagements. But their composition in the 5v5 doesn't seem to be holding up.
Yeah, I mean, Bifrost team comp is just kind of built more for these kind of, you know, snap engage, dive in, kill the HVT that you want to and get out, or just continue the onslaught. Whereas Fnatic Team Kesso, it was, you know, it's more built for the early stages through the mid jungle. You try and play onto the side, get the Gnar ahead, force him to be a really oppressive force, perhaps, into the Camille. The issue is Camille will always eventually catch up in the scaling. And if you're not playing up towards the top side, try and go give Bean the resources. And I mean, they definitely did try. But the issue is Bean just not had the same level of success in these team fights. He's not been able to get himself into positions, or Fnatic Team Kesso haven't been able to prop him up into the same positions that perhaps Bifrost have been able to on a couple of occasions. Which just means right now, they find themselves with what I would consider an inferior team fighting composition. Behind in a situation where they can't really play side lanes either, so they're just gonna have to continue to try and rely on picks. Bifrost, again, the world is kind of their oyster. They went out on the side lanes. They're the ones that, for now, have been winning out on the execution because they've been so snappy on the engages and so willing to pull the trigger. We'll see what the decisions actually come down to, because now Fnatic Team Kesso are not in a hole simply because of the gold deficit and the map state, but also because 4 minutes time, Mountain Dragon spawns up. That's soul for Bifrost. That's 4 Mountain Dragons. And, you know, again, even that plays into the anti, you know, pick kind of playstyle that Fnatic Team Kesso kind of have to play because of the game state. Simply because Bifrost is just getting free stats per dragon, and then they're additionally going to get the shield. It's just going to become more and more oppressive as time progresses. Team Kesso, I feel like they're just on a bit of a timer now at this point. I'm not really sure what the avenues are besides miracle team fights and Bifrost overstepping.
Which, it must be said, in the NLC and in a little bit in this tournament, but not so much, we've seen Bifrost overstep. We have seen them make mistakes when it comes to closing out games, but I mean, equally, Fnatic TQ, we talk about their one loss in the group stages so far. It was all about missteps in the later stages. It was all about losing Barons and forcing base races that were not favorable. So, if we're looking at them, the onus is on them to solve the puzzle if Bifrost play even at a neutral keel. I mean, this isn't the most neutral keel. They've started up with Baron with 5 members of both teams on the map as FnaticTQ have vision. They're moving forward. Rhuckz to clear some out, but this Baron's going down pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm sure Bifrost know that the rest of Fnatic are actually here. I mean, that teleport will give away the fact that they know it's going on.
Oh my word, it's on 3K. Maxi's on the back of the bit. Oscarin's there. He's pretty angry. We'll have to hop over the wall, though.
Shikari, look
what
at
Bifrost's going to do? Shikari on the back is trying to get some work done. The tower goes down, but who's going to be able to get the Baron? Who's going to be able to secure it? It's secured by Maxi, and now he's going to try and get out. He's going to fall, though. Bifrost, they're angry. Their objective has been secured. They want to take the team fight. Peter's called out in the ultimatum. No safe harbor for Aphelios. Goodness me, Fnatic TQ. That looks so good initially, but they lose 4 members.
Yeah, they just weren't able to win out on the fight inside of the pit, outside of it as well. Shikari was just, I'm not even sure what he was doing. Oh, Baca! He wants the wave.
You cannot be there. That's the ace. Bifrost are going to make inroads. No Baron for them to push with, but how much can they secure?
Yeah, I mean, the death time is kind of long, right? 20 seconds, 15, the shortest right now. They can, at the very least, get an inhibitor. They can, at the very least, try and push for a Nexus tower. Oh, will they go for the end? 20 seconds on Bean. I mean, I think they can try and go for it here. This could be game.
They've got Jinx. What are Fnatic going to be able to do? They're going to send members out to defend.
They've got
Tahm, Kench, Gnar there, but the Jinx is untouched on the backline. They're getting all the damage down onto the objective. Bifrost, just like that, an advantage NLC.
Bifrost get their week 1 revenge here today against Fnatic Team Kesso. Almost in reverse style, right? It felt like in week 1, that was Fnatic Team Kesso kind of dumpstering Bifrost for a majority of the game and kind of struggling to close out. this time around, Bifrost kind of do the flip side, except it wasn't really too much of a struggle. Yes, they lose out on that Baron, and yes, they didn't quite manage to, you know, secure that in a clean manner, but able to pick up the game off the back of that. I think, you know, from start to finish, seeing a lot more proactivity out of Cboi, Bifrost in general just looked more cohesive as a unit in comparison to all of their performances in week 1. And I mean, I have to say, from the perspective of Fnatic Team Kesso, it's a bit of a scary precedent to start the day off with, because I think in general, maybe some questions of the mid game or mid to late game anyway, starting the day off by losing to Bifrost, we'll see what happens, because it sets up for a really entertaining Group C.
It's going to be really exciting. We're going to jump to a short break now, but when we come back, we're going to be talking to Cboi about that matchup, and then we're going to look towards our next match. It's going to be BDS Academy taking on Team Esker. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few minutes.